The expression, like a decoy out of water, suggests to me an object which has either a potential real use value or one which has been transformed into a decorative object. If the decoy still is meant to serve its original purpose, which is to attract, as in the case of a decoy duck, other ducks so hunters can shoot them, then it could be found perhaps in a garage with some netting near a small boat, perhaps, and a couple of lobster or crab traps. And in the other case, if it has been redefined into a decorative object, then I can imagine it in a country home or a so-called den, or maybe even a themed bar like one finds in beach towns. I recall in Ocean City, Maryland, there's a bar called Them Are Ducks, a name meant to gently ridicule the patois of the Eastern Shore dwellers. Finally, if the decoy is a real antique, say from the 19th or early 20th centuries, perhaps it could be found even in a museum dedicated to local handicrafts.
This is another School of Negativity production on my 67th birthday here at Ken Henlopen State Park in Delaware near Rehoboth Beach. I essentially forgot to factor in that in this bright light I really can't see the screen at all. And since I've only used this app once before and didn't even remember what the name of it was, it's going to be hard for me to try to do what I'm about to do, but I'll do it anyway. Okay, I just took 300 stills. I probably could have done that much easier by using a time-lapse setting, but then I wouldn't have been able to count them so easily, and it's so hard for me to read off the screen that I just decided to do it in the way that I can see, since the white button that takes a picture is pretty easy to see. I picked 300 stills because I'm going to make drawings off each of the stills, which will then be used in animation. And if I make the animation 30 frames per second, then that's 10 seconds worth of material. And if I make it 60 frames per second, then that's 5 seconds worth of material, both of which will be adequate for my purpose. I'm wearing 3 waterproof cameras. 2 of them are very cheap. 2 Vivitars, one that I got for $35, one that I got for $40. Then the camera on my chest is a GoPro. That costs somewhere between $250 and $350.
This decoy is not a disease vector. This decoy is actually a wood rabbit, but that is besides the point. This decoy does not take orders well. This decoy organizes information, not lies. Lies can be organized, but they really should be circularly filed, and this decoy cannot be bothered. Why is information literacy no longer library-worthy? Why is an industry of organization telling this decoy how and when to wash her hands? She has to cleanse her hands of information and silence her voice with a face mask. And why is this duck being asked to ask people to return books and movies, information, into trash cans? This decoy is a decoy out of water, where in the water lies the truth that seeks to seep into the minds and real bodies it wishes to engulf.
There's a plaque. You'd never guess this forest you were walking through was once a beach. Although beaches always seem to look the same, geologists know that they are constantly changing. 3,000 years ago, this was open ocean. Over time, the shoreline has moved to the west, while the cape has moved north, creating land where none existed before. If the same process continues to operate as they have in the past, Cape Henlopen will join the inner breakwater of Lewis Harbor within the next 50 years. I do find that somewhat interesting. At the same time that I'm finding my life very boring and unsatisfying at the moment. Changing times. This narrow ridge of sand running into the marsh was once a sand spit, a finger-like extension of the cape. About 1,500 years ago, when this spit was formed, the marsh was a shallow bay. Native Americans camped on the spit in order to collect the clams which grew in the bay. The hundreds of thousands of discarded clam shells have protected the sand spit from erosion, allowing the forest to grow. The shallow bay, on the other hand, has silted in, leaving an extensive marsh. Tide marsh, fiddler crab. The flooded lowlands on either side of this spit are brackish, a mixture of saltwater and freshwater. These flooded lowlands are referred to as tidal marshes. Tidal marsh inhabitants must be very versatile. They must be able to survive in both air and water. Many animals either hold their breath or retain water within their bodies during tide fluctuations. Some, like the fiddler crab, survive low tide by passing air over their moist gills. Depending on tidal changes, plants have to adapt to either being baked in the sun or being submerged in water.
What a lousy decoy is horse lover from the broad meadows. These are the words tattooed on my back. A target. If it quacks, it's an air horse. A duck is a duck is a duck. I'm a dead duck, done like a dinner, flogging a dead horse. Duck! Duck! The goose guarding the flock, but the geese remain asleep, playing ducks and drakes, traceable and transparent. I can't breathe. Asphyxiation, hypoxia, the new normal, the new Pavlovian conditioning. I can't swallow it. Duck and cover, but there is nowhere left to hide, nowhere left to disappear, nowhere to swim, nowhere to dive, dancing with death, dying for doomsday, doomed for dystopia, fishing for a future, dazzled by the spotlights.
This duck is not a disease vector. This duck is actually a wood rabbit, but that's besides the point. This duck does not take orders well. This duck organizes information, not lies. Lies can be organized, but they really should be circularly filed, and this duck cannot be bothered. Why is information literacy no longer library worthy? Why is the information of organization telling this duck how and when to wash her hands? She has to cleanse her hands of information and silence her voice with a face mask. And why is this duck being asked to ask people to return books and movies, information, into trash cans? This duck is a decoy out of water, wherein the water lies the truth that seeks to seep into the minds and real bodies it wishes to engulf.
Further thoughts. A decoy is something whose value lays in its approximation to authenticity, yet something which is itself inauthentic. Its purpose is not to function, but to simulate the possibility of a function. Its purpose is to attract either similar animals, as in the case of a decoy duck, or to attract attention away from something else, as in the case of the false airfields constructed during World War II to distract the Axis forces from the D-Day landings. The phrase, like a decoy out of water, in a philosophical sense, suggests to me an authentically inauthentic object, which, having been displaced from its authentic setting, is now exposed as essentially useless. It is exposed as being without any intrinsic use value. It is demasked. Thus, the thing which is meant to draw the attention of other things, when it draws attention to itself, becomes purposeless.
from a parallel universe to this one. Superficially, there's not much difference between the two. However, I'm finding this universe strangely toxic. The place where I am is called Delaware. It's home to Dow Chemical, the world's largest polluter, excelling in both air and water pollution. Even though this is a place intended for enjoying nature, there are signs around warning one to not touch objects of a particular appearance because they may be explosives. There are big guns. There are people walking around on the beach with protective masks on for no apparent reason. It's no wonder people seem so afraid. I wish I could get to my own universe and leave these deranged people behind.
Like a fish out of water is an expression that means out of their element. A literate person in a room full of illiterates might feel like a fish out of water. But what about a decoy out of water? The characters in this movie are carvings of fish, painted to look somewhat realistic. They seem to be more naturalist folk art than they do decoys. While some decoys are made to attract ducks for hunters to shoot at, I doubt that these fish carvings have ever been used to attract fish to be caught. Thus, the symbolic alienation goes a step further in its abstraction. The maker of this movie went to a beach resort town to try to do something special for his 67th birthday. Since he had no friends to join him, he was alone. He took cameras along and the fish carvings as props. He put them in the environment he was shooting in, but he wasn't hunting or fishing for anything. There was little or no hope he could even attract curious new friends. He didn't. Instead, he swam through a world of humans that he has almost no points of contact with. A world where he's almost as abstracted as a decoy that's not a decoy in an ocean where wooden fish don't even swim. No matter where he and the carvings went, they were both out of place.
Strange around here. I can hear the insects. I've seen a few birds, but I've hardly heard them. I don't think I've seen any other wildlife. you mind that I'm videoing? Because if you mind, then I'll turn it off.
No, you're fine.
Okay. So what are you doing? Cleaning a rifle, apparently?
Yep, cleaning an M1903 Springfield. We did a firing today.
Uh-huh.
To show people what they sound like, how they operate, and cleaning them so that they don't rust and that kind of thing.
These would have been common rifles in World War II, I take it?
Yes, the 1903, which is all in pieces right now, was issued to the home front troops, which were the guys here at Fort Miles.
Okay.
And then the M1 Grand, which is the complete one that's down in front of you there, that's the standard issue battle weapon for forces both in Europe and in the Pacific. Good one. Yeah, pull that one out and then run it through a couple more times on those.
I'm a musician, and when you're cleaning a saxophone, for example, you do something very similar. There's a rag that you drop in and pull back through the body of it, which would make sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for